Well, so here we are on yet another road trip, and this time we've borrowed the Maruti Suzuki Ignis diesel. In fact, we've not borrowed it, it's been our long term car for a while now, and we've decided to head out for a road trip all the way to Alwar from Delhi. And why we decided to pick up Alwar? Well, simply because it's only about 2.5-3 hours drive from Delhi, and it has that historical fort. And on the way, you can always take a detour and head out to Bhangar if you are in the mood to get spooked. And you can also head out to Sariska. And you can also take a slight detour and go to the Nimrana Fort or other places around the Alwar area. Well, so if you're someone like me who lives in the center of Delhi and it takes you at least an hour to get out towards the highway, then you will really appreciate the Maruti Suzuki Ignis's steering wheel. Now, it's a light steering wheel when you're driving in the city, but it's not so light that it starts to become nervous on the highway. For the highway, this car's steering wheel has just the right amount of weight in it and has the right amount of feel also, so you get a good sense of what's happening with the tires up ahead. And it's a good car for highway duties as well. And why do I say that? Well, simply because it really does feel very stable, very reassuring. And even though it has a relatively compact wheelbase, the overall ride comfort on the Ignis is pretty good. It is pretty exemplary, and you'll be surprised to see how this car tackles those badly patched up roads, because there are quite a few roads that we have encountered today which have been patched up and rather badly, and this car has simply managed to annihilate most of those roads and hasn't allowed too much of those undulations to enter the cabin. So it's a good car for highway travel. Now, how good is the Ignis in terms of stability? Well, you're not doing speeds of about 100 or 110 or 120 kph. This car feels pretty decent in terms of overall stability. Now, it won't feel as rock solid as a big sedan or maybe as the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz does, but it does feel 90% as stable as the bigger Ciaz. So that's a big compliment for the Ignis, because it is, remember, a car which has a very compact wheelbase. So even then, it does feel pretty good in terms of its stability. Now, another great point about the Ignis is the excellent visibility all across. The visibility from the back window is pretty good. You get these slender pillars over here, so you can easily look around them. The rear view mirror isn't the biggest. It could have been slightly bigger, so there is an issue with some blind spots around the car. But you can always move around in the cabin and get some exercise and also see what's behind. So overall visibility is pretty good. Yes, the mirror could have been better, but even then, the visibility in the front and at the back from the window is pretty good. Well, overall, the 1.3 liter DDIS engine is also pretty good. Now, it's not the most powerful engine in the business on a hatchback, but it'll get the job done. Power delivery is more than adequate. There is a little bit of turbo lag initially, and this engine has been around for a long time. In fact, many of you do joke on my Maruti videos that this engine should be called the engine of the century, or the engine of the year, or the Indian engine of something or the other, because all Maruti cars have this engine. But to be honest, it is a good engine in terms of overall performance as well as fuel efficiency. Now, one area where a lot of people do criticize this engine, and a lot of motoring journalists criticize this engine, is in overall refinement. And people say that rivals have got better refinement, and in some ways those statements are partially correct. It's only when you rev this engine really hard that you can feel the boom inside the cabin. Yes, it does become a little noisy when you rev it hard, but for regular driving and for normal motorists, this engine is quite okay. The noise levels are within acceptable limits, and you never really feel tired with the noise, unlike some of its rivals. And it's a very distant murmur, it's not a close murmur at all. So you will be pretty okay, because when you're doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, the engine is spinning around 2200 rpm. The cabin feels decent in terms of noise and vibration levels. Overall, wind as well as tire noises are always under control, and overall cabin isolation on a car of this size and at this price is pretty good inside the Maruti Suzuki Ignis. Well, so we're driving the automatic gearbox car, and it is the AMT diesel that we're driving. Now, fuel efficiency figures on this trip have been in excess of 21 kpl on a very good basis and on a very regular basis, especially considering that we've had a complement of passengers on board as well as some luggage. So 21 kpl for the small Ignis isn't bad at all. In fact, it is pretty good. And also remember that we've been using the AMT gearbox, and it is a completely hassle-free car to drive. You really don't have to pay too much attention to gear shifts, because the gearbox quality and the gear shift quality is pretty good. It doesn't really feel like you are driving an AMT car, and by AMT I don't mean an automatic, I mean an automated manual transmission, because most people say that this is the lowest level of automatic gearboxes. But to be honest, Maruti Suzuki engineers have really worked hard on this gearbox, and it does not feel like an automated manual transmission gearbox. It feels like you are driving a proper torque converter gearbox, or you are driving something better, because the gear shift pattern, as I just said, is very good. The response to throttle inputs is also very good, and in fact, when you want the gearbox to move down quickly and all you do is simply smash the accelerator pedal down, the gearbox does respond along with the accelerator, and gear shifts are very good. It does go down pretty quickly, so it does not feel jerky, does not feel lazy, and it definitely does not feel like an AMT. And I'm giving the Ignis's automatic gearbox 2 thumbs up. It really is that good. What you'll also appreciate about the Ignis are the seats. These seats are very good in terms of comfort, and I've always said that Maruti Suzuki makes the best front seats in the business. The front seats on all their cars, or most of their cars, offer very good support for tall people like me who get support for the under thighs, and support for the lower back also is very good. Now this car's direct rival is the Hyundai Grand i10, and one big issue that I've always had with the Grand i10 is the fact that the front seats have got very soft cushioning, especially for the lower back and the middle part of the back. So for long journeys you can tire out and your back can tire out, but in the Ignis you will come out of this car as fresh at the end of a journey as when you started it, because the seat support and the seat cushioning really is spot on, and these seats, as I just said, offer a very relaxing and a very comfortable ride in this car, and really enhance the journey and the long distance memories that you make with your family and friends. Well, what you'll also like about the Ignis is the fact that you sit relatively higher than you do in some other hatchbacks, so you get a decent view of the road ahead, and that's something that you'll appreciate when you are driving down this highway, because sometimes it's better to look a couple of cars ahead of you, or a couple of vehicles ahead of you, because that always helps you to know what's happening ahead of you, and makes you mentally prepared for any sudden moves from other motorists, because on these Rajasthan highways some motorcyclists as well as two-wheeler owners do tend to zip around and cut across lanes, so you've got to be a little careful with that kind of activity, because you want people inside the car and on the road to be safe. So it's always better to look around, and the Ignis with its high set seats gives you a good view of at least 2 or 3 cars up ahead. Now if you're on the market for a car which you will drive 80% of the times in the city and about 20% times on the highway, and want something in diesel only with an automatic gearbox, then the Ignis is a great choice, and I would definitely recommend it. Out of 100 points, I would give this car a very high score of 89 or an A+, and it's a car which I truly like. In fact, I'll give it 90 points, because it really is an enjoyable car to drive as well, and it'll also remind you of the original Maruti Swift diesel, which was a great car for keen drivers. And in fact, think of it as a Suzuki Swift with better rear legroom and a slightly bigger boot, and you'll figure out what I've been trying to say. Also, think of it as a Suzuki Swift with an automatic gearbox, because the Swift does not come with this in any versions. So with that thought, it's bye for now, and hope to see you soon. And the Ignis has got 90 out of 100 in my book, and it is a great car for keen drivers who enjoy those long highway trips.